What if every decision you made today, what to eat, who to trust, whether to quit, was secretly being made for you? Not by logic, not by your values, but by invisible mental shortcuts your brain installed before you were old enough to question them. These shortcuts work quietly, automatically, and most of the time you never notice them at all. Welcome to Ideas to DNA. Psychologists have identified over 180 cognitive biases. We are not going to give you a list. We are going to give you a weapon. Today, we're breaking down the 7 biases most likely to be silently running your decisions right now in your career, your finances, your relationships, and your goals. By the end of this video, you won't just know what these biases are, you'll know how to catch them in the act. And stay with me, there's a free bias audit toolkit waiting for you in the description. Here's the roadmap. We're covering confirmation bias, the sunk cost fallacy, the availability heuristic, the Dunning-Kruger effect, anchoring bias, status quo bias, and negativity bias. Stay to the end because the 7th one may be the most dangerous of all. Let's start with bias number 1, confirmation bias. You decide a business idea is good. Suddenly, every article you find supports it. Every podcast agrees. Every anecdote sounds like proof. The warnings, you scroll past them. The criticism, you dismiss it as uninformed. You think you're doing research. What you're actually doing is building a case. This is confirmation bias, the tendency to search for, notice, and believe information that supports what you already think, while ignoring information that doesn't. It feels rational. It feels responsible, but it's neither. Right? Wrong. You're not gathering data. You're manufacturing confidence. When you only collect evidence that agrees with you, your confidence grows faster than your understanding. Your brain turns into a factory, stamping out certainty from one-sided inputs. You end up holding a shiny trophy that says, "I'm right," even though it's hollow inside. And the more confident you feel, the harder it becomes to see what you're missing. Confirmation bias doesn't just affect business ideas. It shows up when you defend a relationship that's clearly draining you, when you stick with an investment because you've already decided it was smart, when you explain away feedback instead of learning from it. It protects your ego by narrowing your view of reality. So what's the fix? Before any major decision, actively seek the strongest argument against it, not to change your mind, but to find your blind spot. Ask yourself one simple question: what would make me wrong? Then go look for that answer with the same energy you used to prove yourself right. This step matters because good decisions aren't made by avoiding doubt. They're made by balancing it. When you weigh evidence for and against your idea with equal seriousness, clarity replaces confidence theater. You stop arguing with reality and start cooperating with it. That's confirmation bias. Subtle, comfortable, powerful. But if you think confirmation bias is sneaky, wait until you meet bias number 2. The one that keeps people trapped in jobs, relationships, and investments long after they should have walked away. Like and subscribe so you don't miss it. So that's how your brain manufactures false confidence. But what about when it traps you in the past? You spent 3 years in a career you hate. Every year you stay feels like you're protecting that investment. Walking away feels irresponsible, even reckless. But those 3 years are already gone. They don't come back if you stay, and they don't disappear if you leave. The only question that matters is what you do with the next 3. The same logic shows up in smaller places. You finish a meal you don't like because you already paid for it. The money is gone either way, but now you've added something else to the loss, your evening. Sunk costs don't just trap money, they trap time, attention, and energy. That's the sunk cost fallacy. Your brain treats past investment like a reason to keep going, even when the future payoff no longer makes sense. The fix is simple and uncomfortable. Ask yourself one question: if I hadn't already invested what I have, would I start this today? If the answer is no, that isn't failure, that's data. Now let's move to a different kind of trap. You see 3 news stories about plane crashes. Suddenly, flying feels dangerous, so you decide to drive instead. Per mile traveled, driving is vastly more dangerous than flying, but the crash was vivid. The statistics were quiet. One sticks, the other fades. This is the availability heuristic. Your brain estimates risk based on how easily examples come to mind, not how often things actually happen. What's loud feels common. What's boring feels rare. You think you're being cautious. You're not. You're being fooled by vividness. The fix here is to slow the emotional spike. When fear or urgency hits, ask, is this actually common or just memorable? Shift your attention away from headlines and toward base rates. Frequency beats drama every time. We're halfway through. The next 4 biases are where things get more personal and more uncomfortable. Now for one that hits your self-image. Day 1 of learning to invest, you feel ready to trade. Day 300, you're humbled. Most people quit before they ever reach that humility stage, which is also where real competence begins. That curve is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Beginners often feel confident because they don't yet know what they're missing. As knowledge grows, confidence drops. The task gets harder before it gets easier. Picture a mountain wrapped in fog. Beginners at the base think they can see the summit. Experts have climbed far enough to realize how much fog still remains. The difference isn't intelligence, it's perspective. This is why early confidence is so seductive, and why learning often feels like failure right before progress accelerates. Many people stop at the valley, misreading confusion as incompetence. The fix isn't to crush confidence, it's to calibrate it. Find someone who has been doing what you want to do for 10 years. Don't just listen to their answers. Pay attention to their questions. Let their uncertainty reset your own sense of scale. Questions stretch your map. Answers can shrink it. 3 biases left, and number 5 is the one marketers use against you every single day.
You've seen how your brain traps you in the past and inflates your confidence. Now let's talk about how it gets hijacked by a single number. A jacket is on sale from $500 to $300. You feel like you're saving money, but you have no idea if $300 is fair. The anchor, $500, already did its work before you thought a single rational thought. Once that first number lands, everything else orbits around it. The same thing happens in salary negotiations. Whoever states a number first sets the frame. If you let the employer go first, their number quietly becomes your ceiling. Even when you counter, you're still reacting to their anchor. When you move first, you define the range instead of inheriting it. That's why anchors aren't opinions, they're boundaries. The fix is simple, but uncomfortable. Before any negotiation, identify the anchor. Ask yourself, is this number legitimate, or was it placed here deliberately? Until you answer that, you're not negotiating. You're just adjusting inside someone else's frame. Now let's move to a quieter bias, but one that costs you more over time. You've been on the same expensive phone plan for 2 years. You know a cheaper one exists, but switching feels like effort, and effort feels like loss, so you stay. The plan wins not because it's good, but because inertia is powerful. Doing nothing feels neutral, but it's still a decision. Status quo bias is psychological gravity. It doesn't push you anywhere, it just keeps you in place while the world moves around you. Months pass, prices change, better options appear, and staying put starts to look like stability, even when it's just habit. The fix here isn't radical change, it's a ritual. Once a quarter, audit one area of your life where you haven't made a decision in over a year. Career, finances, relationships, where you live. Ask one question and answer it honestly. Am I still here by choice or by default? Now we get to the most dangerous bias in the series, the one that overrides everything else. You give a presentation, 19 people tell you it was powerful, one person rolls their eyes. Which one do you replay at 2 a.m.? Negativity bias makes the answer obvious. Your brain locks on to the threat signal and replays it on loop. The 19 positives fade into the background. The one negative takes the whole stage. This bias warps how you see yourself, how much risk you tolerate, and how you remember the past. It makes you avoid the next opportunity because you remember the one time it went wrong, not the 9 times it didn't. Your memory becomes lopsided. Your confidence follows. The fix is not positive thinking. It's evidence. Build a deliberate wins log, a running record of proof, compliments you've received, results you've produced, moments of courage you showed when it would have been easier to hide. Not to deny failure, but to counterbalance a brain wired to forget the good. When the night gets quiet and the one negative tries to rewrite the story, you don't argue with it. You open the notebook and let the evidence speak. You now know all 7 biases, but knowing isn't enough. In the final part, I'll show you how to actually use them and give you the toolkit to make it stick. You've made it through all 7, but here's the uncomfortable truth waiting for you at the end. 7 biases, 1 brain. And the part no one likes to hear, you are not conscious of any of these in the moment they happen. That's not a flaw, that's the design. Cognitive biases operate below the level of awareness. They shape what you notice, what you ignore, and what feels obvious or justified before you ever feel like you've made a choice. And that's exactly why awareness alone isn't enough. In the moment a decision matters, you don't feel biased. You feel reasonable, certain, rushed. You feel like you're just responding to reality as it is. That's the trap. Knowing the names of these biases doesn't protect you from them because they don't announce themselves. They quietly run in the background. Awareness is a light bulb that flickers after the fact. It helps you explain what already happened. It does not reliably stop it from happening again. So if awareness isn't protection, what is? You need a system. That's why we built the Bias Audit Toolkit, not as theory, not as motivation, as a practical framework you can use in real decisions when something is actually on the line. You'll find it linked in the description. Inside, there's a decision checklist used before committing to force a pause when your thinking wants to sprint. There's a pre-mortem template that asks you to imagine failure first, so blind spots surface while you can still do something about them. And there's a weekly reflection guide, because patterns only reveal themselves when you look back consistently. Understanding cognitive bias from a video is the beginning. Installing it into how you think is where change actually happens. Now here's the real goal of this entire series. The goal is not to eliminate biases. You can't. They're built into the architecture of human cognition. Anyone promising bias-free thinking is selling fiction. The goal is simpler and harder, to slow down your most important decisions just enough to see what's influencing them. Most of the time, thinking feels like a fast river, automatic, momentum-driven. You get carried along by what feels urgent, familiar, or emotionally charged. And under the surface of that current, the biases are already there, steering the flow. But when you pause, just briefly, the water clears. What was invisible becomes visible. You don't stop thinking. You don't overanalyze everything. You just create enough space to notice what's pulling you in one direction instead of another. Slow down to see. Because one bias caught leads to one better decision. One better decision leads to a different outcome, and that is how thinking changes a life. Not overnight, not dramatically, quietly, accumulatively, decision by decision. So here's my question for you. Which of these 7 biases shows up most often in your own decisions? Be honest with yourself, then tell me in the comments. Naming the pattern is the first step to interrupting it. You'll also find the link to the Bias Audit Toolkit in the description below. Download it, work through it, apply it. Knowledge only matters when it changes how you think and how you behave. And if this video added value to you, like it, subscribe, and share it with someone who could use a little more clarity in their decisions. This is Ideas to DNA, where knowledge becomes action. I'll see you in the next video.